right, awesome. So today, I was very fortunate to get some time off and come up here, and we are remastering the first Seemless record to finally come out on vinyl. And I am here with my good friend Jay Frigoletto. We are at Mastersuite's studio, which is part of the Metronome Studio complex here in Brookline, New Hampshire. I've tracked record up here. I've done some other. I think I did a session with you at one point.
We had you come in on another artist thing.
So it's an absolutely beautiful place. If you ever need an incredible, affordable palace to come and record, please hit me up about it. But a lot of people. So this is something I've been wanting for so long. The master. I mean, the production of the first Seemless record, both Seemless records, but in particular, everybody seems to really want this first Seemless record on vinyl. What we realized today, digging everything out of my bag archive, is it's been almost 20 years. Like, the dates were 03, so it's been 17.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you were able to do this for me, man. I wicked appreciate it.
Happy to be part of it.
And so some people have asked me, though, and so that's why I wanted to do this quick video. Why do we have to go and take a record, which some people think sounds fine the way it is, but remaster it and get it to this certain point, strictly for vinyl? And I think some people will appreciate a rundown on that anyway, because not everybody, there's a lot of people getting into vinyl more so these days. And it's, even for us musicians, don't understand why we're having to go and change things just strictly for vinyl. So if you could just, in layman's terms, explain that.
Or even new records, not even old releases. People asking why. And I sort of say, hey, it's a great idea if this is coming out on vinyl. We should really do two versions. And they're like, well, why do we need two versions?
Yeah, so why is that?
So every medium has sort of its own sort of strengths and weaknesses. If you're working with tape, if you're working just in digital, if you're working...
tape as in cassettes, because nobody wants to work.
No,
I know, I'm just kidding.
If you're working analog tape, you can show the big analog machine back there.
That's the old school.
Exactly, old school. Yeah. So all of these things have certain things they do well, certain things they don't do well, certain things they can kind of add to the process. When you're dealing with the CD, again, it's all ones and zeros. It's one of these things that's sort of perfect right up to the point where it isn't. One thing that happens a lot when you're making CDs is you have these loudness wars. Everyone wants something really, really loud, there's sort of things that you give up for that. If you look at an audio waveform, you've got sort of peaks and then valleys. And the only way to make it loud is to kind of squeeze those peaks down and turn the whole thing up.
Is that technically where you're the compression gets involved?
Compression and limiting, exactly. So you're compressing the dynamic range. There's less range between the loud and the soft. And limiting is really just putting a brick wall at the top, so the snare drum no longer can go up here. Just boom, hits that and it gets knocked off. And you're shaving off the top of that waveform at that point, which is essentially, if anybody knows about clipping distortion, you're essentially clipping that.
That's technically going into the red.
Yeah, that's like going into the red.
Into the red too much.
Exactly. And what we try to do here, when you use a limiter, it tries to turn it down really quickly before it gets there, so that you don't get as much distortion. But the kind of level you're trying to push for, you're getting distortion. When you're trying to make a master for vinyl, there's a couple of things that just the physical limitations of what you can put on a vinyl record. You just can't get that same kind of level and have it still sound good. And then there's a number of reasons. There's limitations on how much low end you can get on that. The more you put on there, the more chance that, again, the shorter the playing time has to be, because you've got a lot of, when you're listening to a record, to have stereo, two channels, you've got two motions of that needle. It's going up and down, the vertical. It's going left and right, the lateral. There's only so much space. Again, if you've got this going back and forth, making that waveform, and it's really loud, that waveform gets bigger. Now you've got to space those groover parts. You can't fit as much space on the record. If you're going up and down in the vertical and you get too loud, it'll literally cut right through it. You've broken your record at that point.
And what we discussed earlier, because we were talking about how in this day and age where they're starting to get into the 180 gram, 200 gram, it may help with a little bit of the portion, the up and down portion, but now what we're sacrificing is the actual turntable's mechanical function, because they get heavy and these belts from antique turntables were not made to push and pull.
The belts and the motors are pushing harder than they were designed to push, especially on the older or the antique, lower end, or the kind of more affordable turntables.
Right. Yeah, so, Crosley turntable that the kids are getting from freaking Urban Outfitters right now was not meant to pull that forever. 200 gram vinyl, but anyway, I digress.
So you've got those limitations on how much level. You got those limitations on how much playing time you can put on that vinyl. You've got limitations on how loud you can make it and have it still translate to this crazy needle jumping around in some plastic. And then there's other things. Like when you, if you have like a lot of low bass that's panned out wide, or if you've got things that are out of phase or reverse polarity. This is basically the sort of positive going part of a waveform and the negative going. If you've out of phase means on one channel you've got the positive going, and on the other channel you've got the same thing, negative going. And when you listen to it, it kind of makes feel like your ears are getting tugged.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And that's a problem. And when you mix them together, you get this cancellation. They disappear, and that is basically because of that physical motion of that needle or the cutter head when you're making the master. It just can't do that. So there are times where if you do find some of that and you can't get a remix, you're going to need to kind of collapse some of the lower end into mono to get rid of that phase trouble, or to pull in that low frequency stuff from the sides. Again, the really low subsonic stuff back in the day, a lot of turntables that didn't have heavy needles, if you had a lot of low end on the record, it would actually bounce the needle right out of the groove, land in another groove. So all of these things, there's all of these physical limitations of what you can make happen on a vinyl record. And so we need to make it a little bit less loud. We need to make sure that there's none of that out of phase stuff, maybe put a subsonic filter on it. There's certain things about the way that medium works. There's an optimization of how much level we want to put in versus that surface noise. The longer the playing time, the tighter those grooves need to be, the quieter it is, the closer the signal comes down to that crackly noise floor. So we want to optimize that. All of these things are things that we need to keep in mind when we're doing something for vinyl. And then the last bit, one of the things, we've talked about limitations of vinyl, but one of the things that vinyl allows you to do that digital doesn't is it can extend the high frequency response. We won't get into if we can hear it up there, but so digital, again, as I said, it's perfect up until it's not. It's like it's even until it hits that 20 or a little above 20K, and then you just don't have any more. Vinyl, starts fading off a little bit as it comes to 20K, so it's not like all the way perfect there, but pretty good. But once you hit that brick wall filter on digital, well, vinyl doesn't. It keeps going, and you get this higher frequency stuff, and it's getting a little bit lower. You're not having quite as much level. It's not like perfectly reproduced, but there's stuff that happens way up high there, and these little tiny details that you can't actually get on a CD sample rate. You can if you go to like double sample rates. And so for that reason, as I just said, double sample rates. That's why we're going to master at those double higher sample rates, where it has to go on CD or be downloaded. You want 44.1 kilohertz sample rate, fewer samples every second. We're going to vinyl. Well, we can actually reproduce this stuff that's a little bit higher. We're going to use these higher sample rates for this master. It's a different sample rate that a CD can't handle, but that's going to allow us to use everything that vinyl affords us. Every possible bit of resolution we can get on that vinyl. Oh, so those are some of the differences. Those are some of the things we change.
In this process, I've noticed, like, from you dialing things in, stuff sounding crisper, clearer. You guys are going to definitely hear the record differently than you've heard it before. Never mind the fact we're taking an old song that a lot of people have requested in the past. We're bringing it back, putting it on vinyl. Haze, one of the first songs I had written for the band, and because of that, I felt like it was like extremely elementary for what I had worked on later, and got kind of insecure about it, and pulled it off the version that Equal Vision put out for us. But we're gonna put it back on there, so that will be on here, and the record sounds really awesome. It's just got a warmth and
if you take this, crank this up and play it, and you're going to feel those drums hitting you in a way that the CD doesn't. You're going to hear little details inside the performances, little things like, if you're, when the guitars kick in on the CD, it kind of takes up all this space. The drums get a little spongy, some of the details go away. with the way that we're doing it now, with the higher sample rates, and we can kind of pull down the level a little bit.
The guitars are blistering.
Yeah, the guitars are going to go, but it's not going to cover up. Like all the little, if you're doing a little ride cymbal thing or a little detail on the hi-hat, all that little stuff, all those little microdynamic details are still there.
Out, yeah.
Exactly. You're going to hear more of that on the vinyl than you hear on the CD.
Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for doing this. We're going to have the ordering information popping up within the next couple of weeks, and Roger from Purchase Street Records, good friend of a lot of us in the scene, he's going to put the record out for us, so we're really looking forward to that. And thank everybody so much, and I'll be getting some information to you soon. And dude, it's been an awesome day already, so let's finish this up.
Let's kick it.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.